good morning. Welcome back to my channel. Today I am going to give you very concise and very point by point analysis of some of the famous characters as well as some of the main plays, some of the most read and loved plays of William Shakespeare. Let's start with Julius Caesar. If you look at Julius Caesar, what is the main theme of Julius Caesar? Well, the most important theme in Julius Caesar is fate versus free will. The theme foreshadows, that is, predicts the events leading to the assassination of the consul of Rome, and then ruler and famous Roman general Julius Caesar in 44 BC on the Ides of March, 15 March, as well as his ignorance in concern for his life. What are the characteristics or traits which are discussed in Julius Caesar among the various characters? Let us first look at the positive traits. The positive traits which are discussed in Julius Caesar include intelligence, energetic, motivated character, extremely generous, which applies to Caesar, and cunning. The negative traits that we find among various characters of Julius Caesar are power hungry, which can apply to Brutus and which opponents of Caesar accused him to be, self conceited, arrogant, and calculating. What is the significance of the play Julius Caesar? Why is Julius Caesar important? Caesar is important because he left a lasting Roman influence on the territories he conquered. He also brought many important reforms. Who can forget that the month of July itself is named after him? He was one of the first to maintain a proper diary in world history, from which the tradition of military diaries has come, and many more things besides. Is Julius Caesar a tragedy or historical play of Shakespeare? This play's original title was The Tragedy of Julius Caesar, or the folio title was The Tragedy of Julius Caesar, if I read out the Old English spelling, when it first came out, when it was first published in 1599. Who is the protagonist or central character of Julius Caesar? Despite its title, Brutus serves as the main protagonist in Julius Caesar. Brutus was Caesar's cousin, a member of the Roman Senate, and the main murderer of Caesar. Caesar himself dies midway through the play and has little or no influence on the events which take place or unfold later in the play. Now let's look at Othello, one of the other main tragedies of Shakespeare. What is the plot summary of Othello? The main action of the play takes place in Venice, as the play's subtitle, The Moor of Venice, makes it very clear. Iago is an ensign or flag bearer to the great military general Othello, who is a North African Muslim. Iago expects to be promoted to the rank of lieutenant, but instead Othello passes him over in favor of Cassio. For this reason, at least he claims, Iago declares that he hates Othello and will wreak vengeance both on Cassio and Othello. Iago tries to take revenge on Othello by accusing him in front of his father-in-law, Barbanito, that Othello had already slept with Desdemona. In fact, Barbanito was Othello's to-be father-in-law, and in those days, to have slept with your fiancée before marriage was considered a serious offense, especially in the kind of aristocratic society that this play is set in. So Desdemona is the girl whom Othello was supposed to be married to and who was Barbanito's daughter. Then, in Cyprus, during a military campaign, Iago gets Cassio drunk and involved in a brawl and in a fight, which forces Othello to strip Cassio of his commission. Cassio loses his commission. The play is made up of many such plots or subplots. The play ends with the murder of Desdemona by Othello himself and his finding out the truth in the end a bit too late. Who is the protagonist of Othello? The whole play is, of course, Iago's play, as he hatches all the plots and subplots. He is described as a moral pyromaniac who sets fire to all of reality by the critic Robert Goddard. This is a quotation from the critic Robert Goddard, who described Othello, who described Iago, as a moral pyromaniac who sets fire to all of reality. And this is quoted in the book Shakespeare, The Invention of the Human. What is the time period of Othello? It is 1603, the beginning of the 17th century. Now, something had happened in the previous century which provided material for Othello. The historical enmity between the Islamic Arabs or the Moors and the Spanish Catholics, which lasted well over 1,000 years, is the background of Othello, which plays out in the enmity between Iago and Othello in the play. Is Othello a tragedy or a comedy? Most of Othello proceeds in a humorous way and shows the characteristics of a comedy, but takes a dark turn towards the end in the form of the murder plots and subplots, which makes it a tragedy. Now let's talk about another one of Shakespeare's. We cannot say it's a tragedy. One of his, you can say one of his last plays. In fact, it might have been the last play he ever wrote before retiring from the stage. And I'm talking about The Tempest. The theme and plot summary of The Tempest is as follows. The Tempest is often viewed as an allegory which refers to Shakespeare's own farewell to the world of drama. But there are often different interpretations about it. One of the main characters, Antonio, is said to land on an island in the Mediterranean Sea following a shipwreck. The shipwreck is caused by magical powers under the command of Prospero, the former Duke of Milan and Antonio's own brother, who is in exile, whose throne Antonio has himself usurped. The change in Prospero at the end of the play, where he renounces his magical powers, is seen as an allusion to Shakespeare's own bidding goodbye to the creative writing process, as this was the last play written by Shakespeare himself. So, in that sense, The Tempest is a tale of renunciation, as there is nothing dearer to the magician or a sorcerer such as Prospero himself is in this play than his magical powers, and nothing dearer to an artist, as Shakespeare was, than his creative powers, which Shakespeare himself is said to have let go after having written this play. So, The Tempest is themed on not just magic and sorcery, but it describes the true nature of the creative process and the human ego itself, which is so hard to let go of. A struggle that Shakespeare himself might have been going through at the time of writing this play. Now, if that is so, then why are there so many different interpretations of The Tempest? The Tempest was written in 1610 to 1611. This was a time in which England's social and political climate were in a flux, following the passing away of Queen Elizabeth I. Strange tales were also spreading in the markets of London following a shipwreck that had actually taken place in 1609 of an English ship that had disappeared in the Bermudas of North America, the area of the sea which today we know of as the Bermuda Triangle. And the sailors of that ship vanished for 10 months, which set off rumors on their return that they had been taken captive by devils and strange powers which spoke in the air. So, in that sense, the Tempest might be nothing else but Shakespeare attempting to present an attractive and juicy plot, modeled on that shipwreck which actually took place, according to writers like William J. Long, who have analyzed Shakespeare's plays. As a final act of his playwriting career, because the type of plays Shakespeare wrote earlier were slowly beginning to become riskier to perform in the increasingly conservative atmosphere at the end of the Elizabethan era, with the gradual rise of the Puritans and with the Globe Theatre itself not doing well at that time. The Tempest, therefore, might have been Shakespeare's final attempt at commercial success by adopting a theme then very much trending in the markets of that time. Only he changed the setting slightly by transferring the island where the shipwreck had taken place from the Bermudas to an island closer in the Mediterranean Sea, and the idea of an usurping duke and his revengeful brother who had been usurped were included in the tale by Shakespeare only to maintain his signature style, as there were already accusations against him of not being original and stealing others' ideas. Whatever it might have been, The Tempest shines, as do the rest of Shakespeare's plays, with his genius of penetrating deep into the human psychological condition and of displaying once again that even human beings who looked so different from the common men as they were in high positions were also emotionally frail creatures with feet of clay, that is, with their own failures, as Prospero is in this play. Now, is The Tempest a tragedy or a comedy? The Tempest is a comedy as it ends happily. So, Tempest is one of Shakespeare's comedies, it's not a tragedy. The first folio edition of Shakespeare's plays, which was published after his death in 1623, also refers to it as a comedy. However, it is called a dark comedy or a problem play, along with some others of Shakespeare's earlier plays like Measure for Measure, Cymbeline, and A Winter's Tale, alongside which it is grouped. Now let's talk about Hamlet. What is the context of Hamlet, one of Shakespeare's greatest tragedies? The problems of Hamlet, the Prince of Denmark, take place in the context of a single family's domestic problems and also in the context of political decisions that affect an entire country. What is the inspiration or background of Hamlet? In 1596, at the age of 11, Shakespeare's own son Hamlet died. Hamlet was 11 years old when he passed away. Now, Hamlet was written 3 years after this. So Shakespeare already had personal experience of grief and the relationship between a father and a son. So this might have affected Shakespeare 3 to 5 years later when he wrote Hamlet. Also, Hamlet was written just 5 to 7 years before Macbeth, which makes the theme of murder and insanity running